Okay, hey everybody, welcome back for another Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 video. I'm Matt. Today we're going to be doing some FPS testing on Flight Simulator 2024 and comparing what single monitor versus triple monitor versus 5 monitor with touch panels with Air Manager and pop-out panel manager and face tracking and all of the different add-ons. We're just going to be going through and adding one add-on at a time to see how that affects my FPS, to see what the key contributors are to performance when you have a setup like mine. I was pretty surprised here to start up the flight simulator, and even before I started recording, and it was literally just the simulator running. So I'm on the ground here. I'll show you my settings. I'm running high settings. I have dynamic turned off, so it's not going to automatically adjust the. It's not going to automatically start adjusting settings on me to try to achieve a minimum frame target when I start seeing frame dips. I have VSync turned off, so my VSync monitors aren't going to limit me at all. Not that my frame rate is high enough for that to matter, anyways. I have DLSS turned off, and I have TAA turned on. So we're not using any, or I should say, frame generation is off, and TAA we're not using any DLSS because I just want to kind of baseline the system to see, with bare minimums, what's the highest I can achieve, and then if we want to start turning on DLSS and frame generation on and these dynamic LOD kind of things after the fact to try to improve FPS, we can do that. But we're just baselining here. So yeah, high graphics. Again, as a reminder, I have I'm running Ryzen 7900X3D. It was a big decision whether to get the 7800X3D versus the 79X3D versus the 7950X3D. I figured, so it's a known fact that the 7800X3D was the best CPU for gaming, but I figured, well, with all the background tasks I'm running, plus streaming or recording and in multi-monitor, I figured with all that background load, maybe having the additional cores to process that load while running the flight simulator itself off of the Vcache cores might improve things over the 7800X3D. I didn't buy enough hardware. I didn't buy two separate CPUs and benchmark them against each other, but trying to read some stuff online, and it just seemed like that might be the best option. Of course, you get a lower frequency, max frequency speed when you go with a 7900X3D versus a 7800X3D, so that slows you down a bit. And of course, you have less Vcache cores compared to the because I think the 7800 is 8 Vcache cores, and I think the 79 is only 6 because it's 12 cores. Anyhow, that's a whole topic of conversation on its own. But so, and then GPU wise, I'm running a a 4070 Ti. So I was pretty surprised when the other day when I was running the system, I think I was seeing somewhere around the 30 FPS I'm seeing now, but that was with all the additional stuff running. So right now, if I zoom out here, and I still need to make some settings changes so that it doesn't automatically adjust my views when I try to change my OBS scenery. But anyhow, so you're looking at my 3 monitor scenery, but I have 2 of them off because I'm just trying to baseline and see with one monitor what's the performance look like, and then I'll start turning these on, and then I'll turn these 2 on, and we'll go from there. But 30 frames per second, and you can see up here we're limited by render thread, it looks like, combined with limited by GPU. It's bouncing back and forth between the 2. Other things that I noted, so CPU memory, we're up at 29.3 right now on the ground, not doing anything. Peak CPU memory looks like it peaked at 30.65, and I only have 32 gigs of RAM in the PC here. Although that's interesting. Here it says we're only using 23.9. That's interesting. So I wonder why this says we're up at 29 when Task Manager says we're... Oh, that's weird. What is that all about? Okay, so I guess we can't run in summary view because summary view says 23.9 when actual memory usage, according to this... No, that's right. I was thinking we're using 31.2 out of 32, but no, that's this top line is 31.2. Okay, so this is accurate. So I'm going to go back into, yeah, in use, 22.8. Okay, sorry about that. So back to summary view. I'll keep this up for reference. Notable here, temperatures. Does it show temperatures on here? GPU temperature is 62. Looks like it doesn't show CPU temperature. Does it show it here? I don't think so. I'll go back to summary view. However, if I go down to my, down here, so this is my CPU temperatures at 61.1. I always had that running in the taskbar, and then GPU is 61. I have an all-in-one AIO cooler, so my CPU is liquid cooled, and then the nothing special on the GPU, and so about 60. So it doesn't look like we're thermal throttling, and we're getting this about 30 frames here. So I think I'm going to call that the baseline, and from there we'll start turning on other screens here. So that's going to get annoying real quick. So if I turn on this monitor and this monitor, render 2, and window 1. Okay, so what kind of an effect did that have? Oops. We're, yeah, no effect. We're still at 30 frames. Bear with me for a second. I'm going to set myself up here so that I can make sure that we're looking at the right thing here. Whoops. All right, yeah, so 30 frames. From here, we'll start hooking up our other monitors. Trying to think, is there anything else I want to test before plugging these guys in? I don't think so. I think we're just going to go for it. Alright, 2 monitors. Okay, and everything works there. And we're still looking at 30 frames. So really no effect there. And if I so I guess I didn't note my CPU usage and GPU usage when we started, but you guys can back me up there, and I can rewind if I need to. Temperatures are still at 60. We're at just about 40% on the CPU. Memory is still at 23.5. GPU's at 82, so the GPU's even got some headroom. Granted, we're on the ground not doing anything, but I should probably switch to this screen so you can see what I'm looking at here. Alright, from here, let's open up Air Manager. Reminder, I'm still using the beta version of Air Manager. Pull this up so you can see what I'm doing. So we'll pop out, let's see, we have G1000s. So we'll pop this guy out. And we'll pop this guy out. And I'll move this out of the way. And we're back here. So that looks like it took a little bit of a hit, 28. So we're down to like 28 point something. So maybe a 2-frame hit there. Now let's start up Pop-Out Panel Manager. Make sure Knobster works. Yep, Knobsters both work. Alright, so Pop-Out Panel Manager. I guess I was expecting it was going to start automatically popping things out there, but it didn't. So. All right, so those are good. We'll minimize that. So again, a little bit of a frame hit there. So now we're at about 27, bouncing between high 26s and then 27. So we'll test, we can change comm frequency. I guess these aren't touch panels, otherwise I could normally test that the touch itself is working, but you can just trust me that if I was using a G3X instead of the G1000, touch is also working just fine. But we're not, yeah, so we're down to, looks like 27 there now. Let's pull this back up. Okay, so a little bit more CPU usage there. We're at 46, 45. GPU is still with the popped out panels at 81. So if you think about it now, Microsoft Flight Simulator is rendering scenery onto 5 different monitors. You got the 3 scenery monitors, plus the plus your 2 popped out panels. So with 5 monitors, we're at 27. It's still only from what we started at baseline. That's a 3-frame hit. So I guess, sure, if you want to talk about starting at 30%, sure, I guess that's a 10% hit. What's next? I guess we could go to face tracking now. Let me, you know what, for the heck of it, I'm gonna go start up my face so you can see my face. Okay, and so that's one webcam. So let me see, how many webcams do you have? So you got the webcam that sees this view, so that's one webcam running, and then now the webcam that's looking at my face is the second webcam running. And if I go back to Microsoft Flight Simulator, so we went from 20, what did we have, 20, we were at 26 there. We're still kind of about 26, maybe bouncing down to 25 now, so maybe a half a frame hit there for running another camera. It's hard to tell because now it looks like it's stable at 26 again. Let's go, I guess we can set up face tracking, except if I'm going to do face, actually let's do XConnect here. So XConnect is what shares the GPS location in the sim with my phone. So I'm going to open the Avare app on my phone. So we got Avare up on my phone. I'm going to scroll over to I/O and start listening. So now we're listening to the computer broadcasting our GPS location from the sim over my Wi-Fi network at home. And now if I pull up the map, you can see we're sitting here at New York, even though in real life, I'm not in New York. So that's working. So that way I can have the moving map up so that I'm simulating like I fly in real life. So in order to do face tracking, I need my my button on the joystick that does face tracking. So bear with me a second. I gotta go grab the flight controls, and then I guess plugging those in will tell us if our flight controls, plugging the joystick in the throttle quadrant. That'll tell us if plugging those into the USB ports has any impact on frame rate. So I'll be right back. Okay, flight controls are plugged in. Of course, engine wants to do its own thing. Tightening things down. All right. So plugging in USBs looked like it hiccuped, glitched my my webcam. So I guess I could turn that back on. And we're back. And then if I look at this, so this one still works, so you can still see that. Okay. So we're down to, yeah, it looks like still 25-26, so not really a big hit there. I'm not going to bother screencasting my map app, to the PC so that you can see the map. You guys see me do that when I go for, when I go for flights, but I'm not going to do that right now because most of you don't do that. It's just me while I'm recording videos. What else do we run though? We do face tracking, so let's get face tracking going. So I run OpenTrack and I run BeamEyeTracker, but it looks like that starts your system. It looks like that automatically starts on startup. So in the bottom right hand corner, so that I can turn on the overlay so that it doesn't look like that's working. What's going on there? What is going on there? Why is that not working? So I don't think so normally you gotta hit start on this, but I don't think that's gonna do anything because BeamEyeTracker is the input. So let me close and restart that. I know it just gave me a notification about settings changing or something like that. I don't know what that's about. Normally I just start the simulator and this app is already running. There we go. So this overlay here allows you to see what on the screen I'm looking at. So right now I'm looking at the bottom left hand corner of the screen. I'm looking at the bottom, so I'm not even moving my head, I'm just moving my eyes. I'm looking at the FPS status on the top left. Now I'm looking at FPS on the top right. Now I'm looking at the eye tracking overlay, and I'll turn that off. So that's how the BeamEyeTracker. Now I don't have it just using eye tracking. There's an algorithm so you can adjust how much head tracking it uses versus how much eye tracking. I found that BeamEyeTracker, so it allows you to use a standard webcam. So like this is a $30 1080p webcam that I got on Amazon. It's a Nexego is the one that I've liked using. I have a few of them. But rather than shelling out tons of money on, I don't even remember what the IR head trackers are called, the popular ones. But rather than shelling out a few $100s, it's $30 for the webcam. I don't remember what BeamEyeTracker costs. I think it was also like $30 or something. And then that integrates with this OpenTrack, and OpenTrack. So the input here is iWare Beam. It goes into this OpenTrack, and then OpenTrack outputs FreeTrack to. So I've hit start there, so it outputs that to the simulator. So now when I hit my face tracking activation button, of course it's not going to work, because why would it work when I'm recording a video? Let's try to stop that again. Seems like it's not seeing, well, we know, and this is having a simulator. What it's all about is troubleshooting. So GAM extensions here needs to be turned on. So now with that on, let's try this. There we go. So if I hit my button here, I have on the joystick a button set to head tracking. So when I hit the button, now I can move my head around and it follows me. And when I hit the button again, it automatically centers. I can go back to our main view. Hit the button, and now it's tracking where I'm looking. So I can look out the window while we're coming into land, or I can look out this window here while we're coming into land. But with 3 monitors, you don't have to do a whole lot of looking around. It's only once in a while. 3 monitors, you can see quite a bit, but it's still nice to be able to turn your head and see. Of course, in an aircraft like this, you got these 2 big A-pillars. But if we had like the Sting S4, which is why I like flying that, because it's just got a glass canopy, so you can look, up to left and right, and you got nothing but glass canopy that you're looking through. So there's eye tracking, and with eye tracking running, FPS is at 25. So far, we've dropped from 30 FPS down to 24, 25 with all of this stuff running, and I think that's just about, that's most of the stuff we fly with. Memory is still at 24, CPU's up at 53 now, GPU's at 80. I can run, so process Lasso, I believe, is running in the background right now. I'm looking for it, except I'm not seeing it. That's interesting. So if I open up, I'm pretty sure this was running in the background. But if I go to active processes, we can see Flight Simulator is running on cores, or I guess cores, threads. It's running on threads 0 to 11, so that would be cores 0 through 5. And everything else I have, so I set that affinity, so it defaults to that when I start all these programs. Everything else, so system tasks, of course, are going to do their own thing. That I have no control over. But everything else that you see popping up here as, as it pings the CPU, is running on the second core, so the non-3D cache core. So the V-cache core is running Flight Simulator. Everything else is running on standard cores. And then in terms of CPU loading, we can see up here, the simulator itself is actually, that's a pretty good load sharing between, so that was one of the big things Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 changed versus 2020, is with the simulator running, that's really good load sharing across all of these threads. Okay, so that right there kind of, so I guess another test would be, if I were to run everything on just the 3D V cache, does that have any effect? I guess it could go 2 ways. One way would be it slows things down, because now we're now we're saturating those threads. The other way could go, it speeds things up, because maybe those threads weren't saturated, but now we're running all this other stuff on 3D cache. So I don't know. I'm not going to do all that right now. That's a pain in the butt to do all that stuff. So we'll put that away, and let's see, what else do we usually run? We could run SayIntentions. I guess I'll turn it on just to see. I'll probably turn it off because it's going to get annoying pretty quickly. So far, it doesn't look like that's had any effect. Waiting for Flight Simulator, no lat long. Here it is.
Avare Airport, no one is responding to the frequency given on 118.0 305. Currently 1,900. En route to land at Europe. Still working in Nashville.
Skyhawk.
Alright, I'm going to get off that frequency, just put in a random ass frequency. Let's see if that stays quiet. If not, I'm just going to X out of SayIntentions. But we're still seeing 25 frames there, maybe a little dip below 25. Now it's showing, yeah, it's still saying limited by main thread, bouncing back and forth with limited by GPU. So it seems like, and I think that's kind of what we want, right? That's like, it's telling me that neither is really the bottleneck. It's, you know, bouncing back and forth depending on what's going on. Peak CPU memory here is still saying 30. So, like, is that allocated, or is that what it's saying? It has peaked at 30. I don't know. CPU memory here, though, it says it's now using 29. That seems like it's saying that's what it's using, unless it's saying that's what it's calling for. But then again, I pull up Task Manager here, and Task Manager says it's using 23.8, 76%. I don't know. Somebody smarter than me might know, like, if you start using over 3/4 of your memory, do you start, you know, bottlenecking things? Or memory, can you go right up to 100% without, you know, if you're using 96%, are you bottlenecking at that point? I don't know. GPU's at 80%, so, you know, there's still some headroom there that we could, you know, start turning things up. But of course, once we start moving, that might change. CPU is at 53%. Let me think. Is there anything else we should be running? I think that's it. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to run one more webcam, because we're going to test in the... yeah, that's going to be annoying if I show you that. So I'm going to turn on one more camera here. This is our controls view. So in my controls view, I show you. So this is more for helicopter flying, but, you know, you can see what I'm doing with the controls when I go to this view. So for the heck of it, we'll run with that on. Looks like it had a very small impact on frame rate, but we'll leave that on. And let's go fly with it like that. So of course, as soon as you start moving things around, you see a dip in the frame rate. But let's go for a little lap in the pattern, and we'll see what frame rates look like. Yeah, there they go. Dipping in the teens. Love to see that. So just a point to mention, there's a YouTube video, probably going to butcher the name of the channel. It's like Tech Testers, I think. Woman, I think she's from Denmark or Norway. So she does benchmarking reviews, and I was looking at one, it was like 40 games tested on the new, so look at that, 13 frames, ouch. But look at the CPU now, or I'm sorry, CPU memory, 30.6. It still says 25 here, but I don't know if that's the case. And now this is awful trying to fly it like this. What's interesting is when my last flight that I recorded, I had all of these same settings, and we weren't quite down this low, or at least not quite this stuttery. I haven't changed anything from that. Maybe we were, because if I had frame generation on, and so my last video that I posted, we were seeing frames at like averaging in the 40s. So maybe frame generation was actually smoothing. I wouldn't think frame generation has the ability to smooth anything. You know, stuttery frames rendered are going to create stuttery frames, you know, generated. Anyhow, so also that Tech Tester's YouTube
Delta
video.
1316, contact tower 118.3, good night.
Tower 118.3, good night, Delta 1316.
So the SayIntentions, did it automatically change the radio back? I wonder if it automatically changes the radio station back to a real station. I don't know, I'd have to look at that. Because, like, that was a random ass station that I had tuned in there. Let's tune in on. Wow, what's going on here? Oh, my fault. User error. So that's another random station. Let's see if we're getting radio traffic on it. Alright, so now.
I did not receive a response on 118.7. Skyhawk 9 Kilo Charlie.
Skyhawk 119 KC New York approach, try LaGuardia Tower. Now on 118.7. Good day.
LaGuardia approach, 118.7. There's no response. So what do you advise? Skyhawk 9 Kilo Charlie. I'm currently on final with intention to land on runway 13.
Start slowing down.
Skyhawk 9 Kilo Charlie, apologies for the inconvenience. Remain on my and continue approach for runway 13 at LaGuardia. I will coordinate with the tower. Skyhawk 119 KC New York approach radar contact 6 miles west of LaGuardia Aerodrome at 1,400 feet. New York altimeter 29901. Skyhawk 9 Kilo Charlie radar contact 6 miles west of LaGuardia Aerodrome at 1,400 feet. New York altimeter 29901. Skyhawk 9 Kilo Charlie aircraft 6 miles west of LaGuardia radar contact not established. Maintain VFR at or below 2,500 New York QNH 1012. State your intentions.
Turn that off because it's talking over me, even though I've tried to turn off any real frequency. So let's see if the frames recover from here. Down to 10. If we come to a stop and sit here for a bit. So the reason I keep looking at the memory, just trying to see if doing anything with face tracking will have an effect. The reason I keep looking at memory is the other day when I was flying, it was pegged pretty close to 31. So because of that, I figured, okay, maybe memory is my bottleneck here. So I ordered a couple sticks of, so a total of 64 gigabytes of RAM, 232 gigabyte sticks. Those will be here next week, and I'll be able to plug them in and see if that has any effect. Then I'll do another, it won't be this detailed, but I'll do another video with everything set up here, and we'll see what that looks like. But right now, I don't think I want to spend, so I have a 7900 X3D. I really don't want to spend the money on a 9900 or 50 X3D. Because I think it's going to be marginal increase from what I see here, maybe 10, 15, 20% difference. So now it says we're limited by GPU. Oh, so GPU is pegged at 87%. And of course, this GPU1 here, AMD, that's my onboard graphics of my CPU rendering, because the GPU will only render 4 monitors, and because I have 5 here, I need the motherboard and CPU to render the 5th one. So that's what GPU1 here is, AMD. But yeah, so NVIDIA graphics here is at 85%, still down at 12. It's surprising. I wonder if we go to a menu screen here, does it recover? Not really. What I do like, oh, there it goes. Now it's kind of recovering. So what I do like is 2020, if you would start dipping into the teens with a frame rate, that was like a pretty good recipe for the sim to crash to the desktop. Seems like this new sim is able to handle, like, I've seen frame rates down to 5 FPS for, just a momentary dip. and the sim keeps running even though it's, you know, painful to try to fly an airplane like that. The sim at least doesn't crash to the desktop, so that's an improvement. For the heck of it, I'll dial things down to medium, and we'll just do a lap. See if we get much of an improvement there. What I've been trying to get out here, I keep getting distracted. Oh. So every time you go to the menu, because you know, Microsoft Flight Simulator can no longer see your cockpit instrument panels, pop-out panel manager loses the panels. So every time you go to the menu, you gotta pull the pop-up manager back up and go through this again. Which isn't that big of a deal. I think most people aren't going to the menu all that often. Alright, so we're up at 30 frames now. So we'll make this a short pattern. I should probably pick up the flaps.
Don't sink, don't sink, don't sink, don't sink, don't sink, don't sink, don't sink.
So clearly medium is running better than the. So that YouTube video, Tech Testers, when she did her benchmark, so early on in the video she shows her benchmark with 2020, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Then she mentions in a pinned comment that she also tested 2024, but because of the issues with 2024. Okay, so I'm going to get distracted again, so I'm still not going to get through that story. So right here it says peaked over retail budget. So it looks like CPU max CPU. I don't know what that means. Peak CPU mem. I don't know what that means. I mean, like, obviously that would. Is it an outer marker beacon? That's all I can think that is. It's annoying. So obviously. Yeah, common sense would lead me to believe that that means that it's using more, the sim is using more RAM than I have, but again, when I go over here, it still says 21.7. So I don't know what the disconnect is there. I'm trying to think, what else can I use besides, like maybe I could use Afterburner, and maybe Afterburner would give me different information. Maybe Windows isn't reading something properly. I feel like that might be an accurate theory. Flaps are down. So, in a pinned comment, she says that she did finally test with 2024 and at 4K resolution, which if you do the monitor based on if you do the math based on 5 monitors and count the number of pixels that need to be rendered by the CPU and GPU, 5 monitors, it ends up being about 20% more pixels than running a single 4K monitor. That frame rate looks pretty good. So it looks like so again, I like doing these tests here at JFK because any flight I do in the simulator is going to be easier on the hardware than flying here at JFK. So, if I really wanted to and I was flying somewhere at some GA airport, I could turn the graphics settings back up, but I kind of like knowing what my set it and forget it settings are. So that's the whole point of doing these tests. But again, back to Tech Testers. So at 4K settings, when she ran a Ryzen 9800X3D, the latest and greatest gaming CPU that's on the market, she was getting 54 frames average. Now, obviously, she's not sitting on the ground at JFK when she does that test. She's probably flying somewhere. Maybe she's flying over a city, so maybe that's somewhat accurate, but maybe she's flying over the desert somewhere. So, it's kind of hard to say without seeing more information there. But let's say for comparing apples to apples, let's say she was sitting on the ground at JFK getting 54. Let's see, just to do some like real rough calculations. If she's getting 54 and a 4K monitor renders 20% less pixels, if I was getting 80% of that, oh, I did that wrong. 54 times 0.8. Technically that means I should be getting 43-ish. That's, rough math. You can't really do it like that, but that's close enough for, on the fly. That means technically I should be able to get, with a single monitor like I started this off at, I should be able to get 43, and we saw I was getting 30. So part of that is I'm running a 7900X3D, and she's running a she's running a 800X3D. She's running the 9800, and I'm running the 7900. And we know that the 7900, even though it's got more total cores, because right now I'm running process Lasso, and even though I got and let me think. I guess I was still running process Lasso, so I would have been running the simulator on, that's probably explaining a lot of it. I was running the simulator on 6 cores, where she was running it on 8 cores. And then combine that with the fact that, the 9 generation versus 7 generation, 9,000 versus 7,000, you're probably getting like a 10% or a 15% increase. So like if I were to, hit this 43 by another, take 10% off the top, or, it's probably closer to 15 or 20% again, if you're talking about, both 2 less cores, lower clock speed, because the 7900 gets a lower clock speed because, God forbid they give you, the full capability of your hardware. No, they're going to throttle it further. Combined with the fact that, it's the earlier last year's generation. So, if I take 10% off the top, that gets us down to 80%. If I take another 10%, I know this doesn't quite work, but it's close enough again. Another 10%, so that, all that stuff combined was 20%. There's my 35. That's a lot closer to what I was seeing. So, somebody left a comment on my last video saying, what's going on? Your frame rate looks a heck of a lot lower than where it should be. I actually kind of think my frame rate is right in line with what the benchmarkers are seeing. So, a few takeaways from this video. If you've made it this long, thanks for sticking around. But the few takeaways is running 5 monitors with all this stuff popped out, it has way less of a penalty than I feel like it used to have in 2024. So great job on Microsoft for figuring a lot of that stuff out, because as you saw when we added 2 more monitors, so we were doing triple monitor, there was barely a hit at all there. It was only when we started running background tasks like Air Manager that we started seeing a hit. Popping out panels, I don't think it had much of a hit, but I think pop-out panel manager popping out a couple panels, maybe gave us a frame lost. But overall, we got a whole bunch of stuff running, and we're pretty close to where we had started frame-wise. And then, comparing what we're seeing to the benchmarkers tests and doing, some back-of-the-napkin calculations, I think we're about as close, I think we're about, on the mark with what my hardware can do, with this kind of a setup, or just with single monitor performance without all these add-ons. We'll see what happens when I get the extra RAM in. We'll see if that has any effect. And then, of course, Microsoft is going to continue optimizing things in the background. So, performance of 2020 over the course of a couple years improved quite a bit. We'll see if they can get the performance of 2024 improved quite a bit. I'd really like to hold off on unless the 9900X3D or the 9950X3D comes out and the price is somewhat reasonable, which I don't think is going to happen. And if it turns out that the performance is like a 30% improvement or something like that, then maybe I might be persuaded to, invest in some more expensive hardware. But if it's 10% improvements, I just can't justify spending $700 on a CPU and $1,000 on a GPU. So close to $2,000 to get 10 frames more out of the simulator when. Yeah, like we said, we already saw the tech testers running at 4K. They only got 54 frames. So I think this is going to be where we're at. So anyhow, for you guys trying to benchmark your hardware with the new flight simulator like I've been doing, I hope this information is helpful to you. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.